Welcome to this week's layout. I'm Anita with beandesigns.com, and I have this week's digital scrapbook layout here for you today. Look at this beautiful layout. It's really quite simple, and yet it has quite a few components that help make it stand out. Let's review what those are. First of all, if you take a look at the velvety ribbon, you can see that it appears to be winding its way above and below the title. Additionally, this string started out as a red string, but it is now blue to coordinate with our layout. Additionally, our frame here, our stamp frame, started out with this beautiful vintage look, which didn't quite work with my theme of my album. And so I wanted to use a digital paper that I've been using throughout the album. And so I'm going to use the frame as a template, cut the frame from my paper to put on my layout. So let's review the parts. Let's start with the frame. So I'm going to need to put this paper onto our new image. This new image, of course, is the 3600 by 3600 at 300 pixels per inch because I'm going to print all of my layouts into a bound book. This particular layout will be part of a wedding album I'm working on. On my new image, I do have my guidelines here providing me a visual of what 1/2 inch border around the edge would be because I don't want to put anything within that border I that I cannot do without. So when I print, when I send this to a printer, I could lose up to a 1/2 inch around my border. So let's make the frame layer active. I did pull this into my new image and I rotated it into place, and you can see that it does extend tad bit into our boundary, but I'm okay with, if I were to lose that, I would be okay with that. So with this layer active, I'm going to hover over the layer and right click and then choose Alpha to Selection. And this is going to put marching ants all the way around the outer edge of the frame. I'm going to cut this part from my digital paper. So I want to invert that selection so that now I've selected everything outside of what's going to remain. I'm just going to make sure that I have that digital paper layer active, and I'm going to push the delete key on my keyboard. That's going to take away everything except for what I have selected because I inverted the selection. If I had not added an alpha channel to that paper, then this would not be transparent, it would be white. I have set my preferences inside my GIMP for all of my layers, everything that I import, to add an alpha channel, just because I do this so much. I don't want to add that extra step. It automatically happens. But in case you had not done that, I want to let you know why yours produced white instead of it becoming transparent. So now I do have all of this outer edge selected. I want to add a shadow to everything. So let's go ahead and invert that selection once again so that now I have selected our frame. Let's add a new layer. We're going to label that new layer shadow, and we're going to place that below our frame, and we're going to fill all of the selection with black. And you can see it there. Let's select none and go to our filters, blur, and Gaussian blur to add a blur to the edges. We now have a shadow underneath our frame, and it's as if the light source is coming directly from above and shining down, and you can just see just a little bit of a shadow around all of the edges. Let's use our handle transform on that shadow to make it have a little bit of a different effect on our frame. So I right clicked in my group and I'm going to choose handle transform. And while I'm on the shadow layer, I'm going to click just inside the bottom left corner, click just inside the bottom right corner, and then here outside of the shadow area, I'm going to left click and drag. I can drag down over, and you can place, as long as I'm clicking on it and not letting go, it doesn't set it. So let me get it into an approximate place here, and I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to push transform, and it will transform our shadow like that. So it gives the effect of this, our frame just coming off the page a tad bit. I brought my photos in. I rotated them, I sized them to fit inside the cutouts. I want my shadow to actually be below the pictures and the frame so that it doesn't give any shadow here in between. So that gives the effect of these photos actually being printed onto the photo paper. When we cut our frame from the digital paper, we did lose some of this dimension that was on our frame. See the edging and the beveling? We don't have that anymore. So let's do a little bit, let's recreate a little bit of that. So I'm going to duplicate the frame copy. I'm going to right click that duplicated layer and I'm going to choose alpha to selection. And then I'm going to use my select menu and I'm going to feather the selection by 25 and select shrink by 10, push OK. Now I'm going to delete that inside part. That's going to leave just the edges, and I'm going to add a multiply mode to that newly selected part. And it gives a very tiny muted edging to it. If we were to duplicate that layer, it actually makes it a little bit more pronounced. You can do whatever would be good and pleasing to your eye. Let's work on this ribbon. Let me show you what we're going to do with the ribbon. So this velvety ribbon is weaving its way through our title. So we've got it coming up above and below and below and above. And so we accomplish this by putting this ribbon on two layers, one layer beneath the title and one layer above the title. Let me show you how we did that. So let me make here is the title, and here is our ribbon layer. So here's the layer that's below the title. Everything is underneath the title. So I'm going to duplicate that ribbon layer, and then I'm going to drag one of those duplicated layers on top of our title. Now you can see that it's all on top of the title. So what we're going to do is erase that top layer from where we want it to not be. So you're going to use the erase tool from our toolbox. Make sure it's a good size. And I want this part to go above, but then I want all of this to go underneath the S. So I'm going to start erasing and just let that S appear. Then this is going to go above, and then I want this to go underneath the arm of the R and underneath that D all the way. Look at that. And This goes above, and then I want this to go, the ribbon to be below this little squiggly and below here. And there we have the ribbon weaving its way above and below our title. One last piece. Remember we discussed our string. You notice our string is red. It's not the color that matches everything else, but it does have this really nice texture to it. So what we're going to do is desaturate this image, and we're going to duplicate that desaturated one, and the top layer we're going to use as an overlay so that we can put the dimension, and then the bottom layer we're going to recolor. So let's go back to our image, and I'm going to, looks like I don't have it on here, so let me just drag and drop our string onto our layout here. Put that into place, but I want it to be underneath that. Okay, so this is our string layer. So let's go up here to our menus. We're going to go to color and desaturate, and we're going to color it to gray. And I just made sure that I was on the correct layer. I'm on the string layer, and it's going to color it all to gray. Once it's colored to gray, I'll duplicate it. The top layer will be overlay, and the bottom layer we're going to fill with the blue color. Pretty simple. And there we are. So let's go ahead and duplicate that. And the top layer, like I said, we're going to make that overlay. And then the bottom layer, we're going to right click and alpha to selection, use our paint tool, use our blue, and just color that to be blue. And there we have a blue string that has the ridges just like the original one. We have our velvety ribbon weaving its way through our title, and we have a stamp photo frame with an awesome shadowed background. Just for your information, I want to let you know that I am using the 2.10.20 version of the GIMP, which is the most recent version at the time of this recording. If you'd like information on getting free GIMP templates of each of the weekly layouts, visit beandesigns.com because I have them available for you to download and use for your personal creations. If you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you did, please like it and explore Bean Design's YouTube channel for other layout videos as well as tutorials for ways to use GIMP in creating great digital scrapbook pages. While you're there, feel free to subscribe and click the bell so that you'll be notified when a new video is released. Bye bye until next week.